Guess what I got to do for my birthday? So I mentioned before that Lincoln has kind of a, well, the Lead Theater, the Lead, whatever. It's in downtown Lincoln, Nebraska. It's very nice theater, auditorium style, for like musicals and plays and speakers and different things like that. And I've been there multiple times before. I've seen multiple musicals there. We saw Moulin Rouge there earlier this year around Valentine's Day. I've seen other performers. That's where we were when my dad and I went to go see oh frick, I'm gonna forget his name. Come on. Name will come to me. Music for Danny Elfman. I was gonna say Tim Burton music, Danny Elfman, where we went to see Danny Elfman. We've also been to see performances of music by John Williams, who is, of course, the composer for Star Wars and Indiana Jones and Harry Potter and so many other different movies and shows and different things like that. And this past week, earlier this week, on Tuesday, which was my 33rd birthday, Neil deGrasse Tyson was there, and he was doing one of the various lecture type of a thing that he does. This one was on the cosmic perspectives. So it's like, considering like how small we are in comparison to like the Earth and the universe as a whole and that type of a thing, but not necessarily trying to make us feel insignificant. And my dad and I really enjoyed it, and it was on Earth Day, so it kind of had a bit of an Earth Day theme to it, and we enjoyed it. So yeah, this was my birthday gift from my mom. So yay, that was my fun birthday thing that I got to do. So chapter. So this is chapter 11,000. Why do I keep saying 11,000? Why do I keep saying 11,000? It's 1,147. I don't know why I keep trying to say 1,000 for these some type of 11,000 form for these chapters. Soon I'll be trying to say 12,000, and that'll be even more egregious of an answer. So in the title is Things That We Fear. And we have the cover page, and the cover page is just basically picking up kind of right where the last one left off. We have Raizo has arrived at Who's Who's Fortress, and he is bearing onigiri and a bag of food, and sharing it with Yamato and getting a hug from Tama, which is just adorable. And Raizo has been made the daimyo of the Udon region, which is the area that includes the prison and this area that they are currently in now, where Who's Who's little fortress is, which we see it in the background. It sustained a little bit of damage, and we see just some people in the background. I don't know if they're people that Who's Who kidnapped, or if they're just other people that showed up with Raizo. Now, as I stated before, and I probably stated these, I know they haven't come out yet, but I've already done a bunch of the character videos about like Raizo and stuff that I've done for subsequent other scabbards. And like, I could never quite figure out where I wanted Raizo to be in regards to like what would be a good daimyo position for him. He doesn't really have that strong of a connection to any of the regions, I guess, because I don't remember where he was when Oden and the others found him. I guess maybe he was in the Udon region, and I don't specifically remember him being stated to be from a specific region. But he might be, he might have enough of a connection to Udon. I mean, he helped break Luffy and, Kawamatsu and stuff out of the prison, so that's good. So he has a little bit of a connection there. But, like, Kawamatsu was one that had been in prison there for, like, 13 years. So I would have thought maybe he would have been the new daimyo. But at this point, they might just... Oda's probably going to make Kawamatsu, the daimyo of the Kuri region, or not of the Kuri region, of the Ringo region, because that's where he lived for a good chunk of time. Where him and Onimaru were, because of the graveyard and everything. So that's probably what's going to happen there. But like Raizo's here. We've now seen Raizo in the cover page story. I still really want Kiku. Her last video will be coming up this next week, which I actually haven't recorded yet. But I really wanted her to be the daimyo of the Ringo region, just because that's where her and Izo were from, and I'll probably discuss that in the Kiku video when I get to it. So we got this little bit. We do not see either Ulti or page 1 in this. We don't see who's who in the background either. So Ulti in page 1, like Ulti was like, trying to pledge allegiance, pledge fealty to Yamato in the previous one. So we'll see what happens there. Into the chapter, we cut back a tiny bit in the chapter, so this is probably just like shortly before Saul started fighting Summers, and we see him and he's like whispering into his beard or he's talking to Robin and Chopper before he like puts them in his beard, and he's like, Robin, Chopper, hide yourselves. And they're like, why? It's just like, I've seen these guys before. They're the God's Knights. Huh? So I don't know if that's Chopper going, huh, or Robin going, huh. Because you would think that Robin might know about the God's Knights because, just maybe with all of her knowledge in general, she's read about them, but also maybe like heard about them from like Dragon, maybe during the time frame that she stayed with the Revolutionary Army. So there's a possibility there. Also, she may not have expected the God's Knights to show up on Elbath, which is a valid question. And we cut back to the present, and we still hear like Saul talking over this, and he's like, we're not gonna beat them. They're immortal. Stay hidden and wait for a chance to save the kids. So we cut back to the present, where we see Saul just out flat on the ground, face first into the dirt, with all of the thorny vines all the way around him, and Summers just standing there with his giant spiky thorn club Kanabo thing that Kaido would very much like to have if you're ever willing to part with it. Although Kaido probably has like an emotional connection to his Kanabo, to Hasaikai, so maybe not. But Summers is like, so it seems like 2 survived Ohara. In the end, the Navy really dropped the ball, huh? So this is just Summers being very condescending, because that's what he is. He's like, he's looking at this like, so it wasn't just that demon brat Robin that managed to escape Ohara 22 years ago. Looks like you survived as well. Well, I guess the Navy and CP9 are getting a bit sloppy there. To be fair, CP9's kind of been getting sloppy for a while, given all of this stuff. They didn't get Big Mom 63 years ago. Well, that was CP0, but it's the same thing. A cipher pole, essentially. And then they managed to not kill Robin 22 years ago, nor Saul, although those were kind of both Aokiji's doing. And then during Water 7 and Enies Lobby, they did not manage to take out the Straw Hats, and the only reason they captured Robin is because she handed herself over to them to protect the other Straw Hats. They did not legitimately defeat Robin and capture her. So those just kind of all failed. Cipher Pulls are not having a good string of results for a while now. Stussy abdicated from them. She betrayed them in the last chapter with Egghead. A bunch of the others that had been captured on Egghead were kind of like, well, we're grateful to Straw Hat for finally freeing us to a degree and giving us plenty of food to eat, so that's not a problem. But maybe are we still loyal to the world government? I don't know. They kind of let us rot here, so maybe not. I don't know. But so Summers is just being very condescending. He's looking down at where, Saul is face first in the ground. And Saul is just very bloody and beaten and everything, so that's just sad. And we cut to a more close-up of his beard, and we hear a rustle. And in the beard we cut and we see Robin just holding Chopper, trying to keep both of them quiet, so that way Summers doesn't realize that they're there. And Summers is like, he clocked the rustling, but then he turns because he hears a noise behind them, behind himself, and he turns and he sees that Gunko has arrived with the other 4 Straw Hats, with Nami, Usopp, Brook, and Jinbei, and they are all tied up with her arrows. And he's like, you caught the Straw Hat crew, Gunko. You taking them back? And Gunko says nothing. And then Kirringham talks, because he's listening in on the Den Mushi that is currently in Summers' hand. And he's just like, quit it, Summers. Are you seriously trying to poke the bear with Straw Hat Luffy? That, the old adage, don't poke the bear. It's like the Hogwarts motto is never tickle a sleeping dragon. In this case, it's don't poke the bear. It's like, we only came here to finish the mission and go home. It's just like, we're not supposed to mess with the Yonko. That kind of goes with like what Stussy and Kaku told Lucci back on Egghead, where it's just like, we probably should get like approval and permission before we, start trying to attack Straw Hat Luffy and start a war with him. Lucci, I don't care, goes off, fights Lucci, or goes off and fights Luffy. And then here, Gunko's just like, well, I beat 4 of them because they kind of got in my way. It's kind of like what her thought is here. And we cut to close up of the 4 Straw Hats all tied up. And I believe it's Nami that's shouting, Colin got captured and Saul's in that state. Come on, Jinbei, you were right there and you couldn't do anything. And he's like, yeah, stop yelling, I'm trying to think. What kind of power was that? So again, this is kind of just showing that like even Jinbei can get thrown off by powers that he's not super familiar with. I mean, we've only seen Jinbei in a couple of different drawn out fights. His fight against Who's Who, for referencing for, back during Wano and everything, his fight there. That was more just brute force. Because, Who's Who was a Devil Fruit user, but he was a Zoan user. Yes, it was an ancient Zoan as a Sabretooth, which was quite strong in comparison, and he was very, very good with his Haki and with the 6 powers and everything, so that wasn't surprising. And I think he still caused some damage to Jinbei during that battle, but Jinbei still beat Who's Who pretty handily. And then even we know that he kind of, stood up to Big Mom a little bit, on Fishman Island and help with, fighting there and everything as they were trying to escape. But again, it's like he'd been around Big Mom's Devil Fruit, so he was Big Mom for a while, so he was somewhat familiar with what her Devil Fruit was and with the Devil Fruits of some of her children, because Jinbei would have seen what they were kind of capable of beforehand. So again, that's he's fighting against people that he's kind of familiar with what they're able to do. This case, he's thrown up against Gunko, who pops up out of nowhere, has this weird ability that allows her to redirect people's attacks, which is what happened with Jinbei and Brook in the last chapter, where she made, they were both getting ready to attack her, and she made them swoop and hit each other instead with her fated arrow. So that's just more throwing this at Jinbei as just okay, even he gets thrown up. Luffy has gotten thrown up so, just kind of thrown... not thrown up, messed up a couple of different times just because he didn't know exactly how someone's Devil Fruit was going to work. We saw that with Crocodile. We saw that with Doflamingo. We saw that with, Kaido. We saw that with Katakuri, where he just kind of gets his ass whooped the first time. Even Cracker during part of that battle and everything before Nami showed up as reinforcement. Where he's gone through all these different ones where he just gets kind of tripped up by this, whatever ability the person has, and then he figures out how he's oh, I know what I need to beat this person, and then he goes. Even going against the Gorosei in the previous arc on Egghead, it was still a similar thing. It's he still had to figure out, okay, I don't want to touch the poison balls, so I have to fight them indirectly, as opposed to, touching them. So that's where he came up with, the baseball bat and everything else like that. So it's Jinbei is kind of in the same boat here, where he's just well, to be fair, all of us got our asses whooped this time around, and we have all been captured. So now we have to figure out how to get out of these bindings, which are most likely made of the arrows, because we've seen Gunko do similar things. So he's just trying to think of a way to get out of this. And then I think it's also, it's Usopp that's going, that woman scared the hell out of me. I thought I was gonna die. Yeah, you did. You fell off of a ship. I don't blame you for thinking that you were going to die. You fell off of a ship in midair. Yeah, that's definitely not normal. And then Brooke is like, that woman, no, it can't be. So Brooke seems to be the one saying that. And I don't know what he means by this. It can't be. What do you mean by that, Brooke? Do you mean that she can't be a member of the Gods Knights? Because she clearly stated it, and later in this chapter, Summers is going to very much reinforce that he's a Gods Knight, and so is she, type of a thing, and Kiriam and everything, that they're the Gods Knights. Is it possible that Gunko has the ability of a prior Gods Knight, that the Arrow fruit, that she has that ability, and Brooke has encountered that ability before, but he was still thrown off by it because he wasn't expecting to see it again, or he didn't see someone use it in the exact same way that Gunko did. So maybe that's part of it. Or, because we know that Gunko is a fan of Soul King Brooke, maybe I don't know, maybe she sent him a fan poster or something, or a picture, I don't know. Brooke seems a little thrown off by this right now. And Gunko just kind of zeroes in on him, and now she's like figured out who she is, and she is pointing her sword that is probably arrow based right at him, because it looks like it's all wrapped, so it looks like it's like a compressed arrow of some kind, and she's pointing it directly at Brooke, and Usopp is just like, she's back. And it's like, the zombie lady. It was like, she's not a zombie, you fought those on Thriller Bark. She just happens to be able to resurrect herself and completely reform herself back from any injury that she has been given. Difference between that and zombie. That might fall more under like the Time Lord set of things, because Doctor Who is back now and I'm enjoying that again. And she kicks Brooke, and she has him pinned where her foot is like on his chin, pinning his head back. And if he was pointing in the right direction, he get a very good upshot of her panties or part of her uniform and everything, and she's pinning him down. And she's like, hey, you. From now on, you're going to make music for me. Be my slave. And she just has him pinned. And he's like, huh? Brooke is a bit thrown off by this. Because, I mean, like, we've seen him do his concerts before. He did, the concert that we've seen in Sabaody. And he did do a concert on Wano. Him and Hiyori kind of did singing together, which I kind of wish they'd done a little bit more of in the anime. That they kind of sang together and everything. That would have been nice. And if they ever make Uta fully canon and have, well, she is canon, but like have her show up and be a singer, I want her and Brooke to sing together, because that would be just great. Because we didn't get that in Film Red, and that would have been a great thing to do there, is to have them sing together. But Brooke, we haven't really seen Brooke have to deal with like crazy stalker fans yet. We haven't. We've seen people who are like fans of his, and we kind of saw that highlighted a bit in like the fan letter with the lady in like the bookstore, the magazine store, that was like a fan of Brooks, wanting to go and meet him and everything, because she didn't get to go to the concert and everything. So we kind of saw that, but like we haven't really seen Brooke have to deal with like crazy fans. So we're kind of dealing with like a crazy obsessed fan type of a thing here. And Nami's like, no way, she knows Brooke's songs? And Usopp was like, a celestial dragon is a fan of Soul King? And to be fair, the Straw Hats are all fans of Soul King. I'm sure they get, spontaneous performances from Brooke anytime he decides to pull out his violin and just start playing, which is just fun. Which I love it when they show that in like the openings and stuff like that, where Brooke is just there like playing his violin, the openings or the endings, where they just have him there playing his violin, or if they add in like filler and he's playing the violin, it's like, or his guitar, like the rest of the Straw Hats just get to relax and listen or whatever, like the whole play, like while they're partying. So like I like it when they do that, because that's just fun, because it shows that like they all love listening to Brooks' music as well, not just his song, not just his old songs, but like the new stuff, and back and forth. And like they're probably like his kind of like test audience for if he's like, I would like to try a new song, would you guys like to listen? Sure, Brooke. And then he just starts playing on the guitar or the violin or whatever, or the piano that he pulls out of wherever the heck they happen to have a piano on the Thousand Sunny. That might have been an upgrade Frankie made. It was just like, oh, we have a musician now, and Brooke showed he could play a lot of different instruments. I'll probably stock up on a couple of those and make sure that we have them available in case he wishes to do any performing. That just seems like something Frankie would do, because he's a musician as well, mostly guitar, but like him and Brooke have played together, which is fun. So we get that. But they're like, wait a second. And then Jinbei is just like, he really caught the attention of someone like that. Huh. And Summers yells over at at Gunko, and he's like, hey, Gunko, just let it go. I'm not in the mood to pick a fight with a Yonko. And she's just like, hmm. It's just like, let's just finish this job already. And Brook talks to her, and he's like, you'll have to forgive me, miss. Ever since the day Captain Straw Hat Luffy gave me a second chance at life, I've pledged loyalty to him and him alone. Which I love this callback to Thriller Bark here, because this is just one of the scenes that is kind of, I just love from One Piece, where it's like Brook, he pulls out his bounty poster that he's had with him for the past 50 years on the ship, and he slams it down on the ground, and he pulls the sword out, and he like jabs it on his cane sword out, and he stabs it onto the ground, and he's like kneeling down, and he's like looking at Luffy and the Straw Hats that are there, because Zoro's passed out because he's very badly injured at that point in time during the party, and he's like swearing to Luffy, and he's like kind of giving this brief backstory of like, I was the leader of a battle convoy from a kingdom in the West Blue, and I was then a member of the Rumbar Pirates, and then I was the captain of the Rumbar Pirates, and now I was, the only one that, survived, quote unquote, all of that, and I would, love to swear to you, Straw Hat Luffy, to, join your crew and everything, and help you and everybody else achieve your dream. And I love that they show that with Brook. That's just, I don't know if that's one of my favorites, but it's definitely one of the ones that I very much like. Because it shows that Brook did that. And we don't really have that many other ones where it's like the other Straw Hats like swearing loyalty to him. That's one of the only ones. Jinbei kind of does. But like Brook is like the only one that we actually get like this formal declaration. All of the other ones are like, Zoro's like, yeah, sure, you get me off of this thing so I don't get executed. Sure, I'll join your crew. Nami, sure, I'll join your crew. That's a lie. Usopp, Luffy's just like, aren't you coming with us? Usopp, I guess. Yay! And then like, Sanji, you want to come with us and cook? Okay. And it's just like they just up and say yes type of thing. Robin's just like, no, I'm your responsibility now. It's like, Brook's like the only one that like formally did this full on like pledge to Luffy to a degree, which is just kind of fun. And Gunko is just like not happy about this, and she's staring down at Brook, and she's like, and what if I told you that refusal would mean your death? And he's like, I'd choose death. I'd rather die than live in disgrace for breaking my loyalty. So I love that. That's just like this great way of just showing like all the Straw Hats and their loyalty to Brook. Well, I mean, they're loyal to Brook too, but their loyalty to Luffy. We saw Nami do this in Wano. We've seen other Straw Hats go through this at various points in time with putting their faith in Luffy. All that. And then Gunko just up and just kicks Brook and sends him flying. And Usopp's like, Brook! Type of thing. And so she just kicks him and Brook goes flying. Probably just like lands on something. I don't know. There's like some branches behind them, so maybe they get maybe Brook gets whacked with some of the branches or something. But he gets like kicked off panel. And Gunko's like, and like dusting herself off, like, the nerve of him is like what she's thinking probably. And I think she is like continuously, I think she goes and she just starts kicking him because she's not happy with this. And Summers is just like just like up and ignoring this in the background. And he like holds up the Den Mushi and he's talking to Kiringham, and he's just like, Kiringham, everything ready? And Kiringham's like, yep, let's begin. So now we're going to get into where Summers is just addressing Elbaf as a whole, where the Den Mushi that Kiringham is holding is being held up to the Dengo Mushi, the bigger one that's like designed to be like basically like an announcement system all over the country, all over the island, an intercom system kind of all over the island. And we cut out and we get like another one of the big panels that shows like, Elbaf's scale and everything. It doesn't look like there's the fire going anymore. We know Jinbei put out a good chunk of the fire a couple of chapters ago, so that was good. I don't know if they got rid of all of the fire or just a good chunk of it, but also from like this scale, from the image we see, we don't actually see any of like the monsters that are running around, the MMAs running around. So we just don't see them in this picture. But the intercom is going off, and it's just like, Elbath, do you copy? Ladies and gentlemen, this message is for the warriors of Elbath. And like, you just picture all the snails going off, like, what the heck is going on? With all the people going like, what is going on? Who is this voice? We don't know this voice. And they're like, who is that? What kind of transmission is this? And like, we cut to one of the villages where we see like, kind of looks like, in all honesty, like the skeleton Jack the Pumpkin King. I have an example. Ha 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 ha. Where it's like Jack Skellington kind of looking like this, where it's like the pumpkin head version of him. So pumpkin head basically. Where he's like towering over a house, looks like he's about to destroy the house. So that's kind of like what one of these things looks like. And I'm like, to be fair, I'm sure Jack Skellington is someone's nightmare. Not mine. I love Jack Skellington. But so they're like, what is this? So it's this transmission is going off in the middle of having to deal with this. And Summers continues, and he's just like, I know you're probably busy dealing with these bizarre events happening around you. That's all our doing. And he continues, and he's just like, I am the Kairen of the Holy Land of Marijois, Summers of the Gods' Knights. So, translation thing here. A Kaiken is a small traditional dagger carried by samurai women for self-defense or blank attempts. Figure out that one. And it's usually hidden in their clothes, tucked in the sleeves or sash of their obi, or near their chest. And it's could also be used for ceremonial, as a ceremonial gift in weddings, is what it says. So I don't know if this is supposed to be Summer saying that this is his specific title, that I am the Kai Ken, that's just like his title amongst the Gods Knights, because like, Garling was the, supreme commander of the Gods Knights. Now he's a Gorosei member. Shamrock was, is the commander of the Gods Knights, not the supreme commander, but the commander. So is Kai Ken just this other version of a rank within them, or is that just like his specific title? I don't know. But we see some of the other nightmare monsters. We see one of the things that kind of looks like a dragon. We see two of the Draugr. And we see a dog that kind of looks like it's been crossed with a spider, which is not a pet I want. This one's far better than the spiders that are in Harry Potter, than the Acromantulas, because that is the one scene I cannot watch in Harry Potter. Is when they have to go into the forest and talk to Aragog. I cannot watch that movie. I can't watch that part of the movie. Everything else I'm fine with. So we see like the dog with like the body of a spider stomping through, and I'm like, yeah, that could be someone's worst fear. Spiders might be what pop out of my head if I was, if Killingham had access to what my worst fears are in this regard. And we start cutting around Elbath a little bit. So we cut to the southwest of the southwest of the solar realm, the artisan village. So this might be where more of like the arts and crafts setups are done. We didn't really know the full purpose of like the western village yet, but like this is like the artisan village. And it is being attacked by a giant winged lion, cartoonishly drawn. So there's that, which winged lions are just kind of fun things to have in mythology anyway. And the people are like, Marijois, so he's with the world government? What's his motive? So they're just like screaming about this while they're being attacked by the giant lion, which is fair. And we cut to the Great Eric. We cut to that ship, and they're like, boss, they're broadcasting this to Elbath, and like one of the giants is running over with like the Dengo Mushi that was on the Great Eric, and like running it over to them. And it's like, now in Elbath, and I think it's Bragi that is like, I always have a hard time just differentiating between Dory and Bragi. I'm sorry. Oimo and Kashi I'm better at, but Dory and Bragi I have a harder time with, for like name wise. But it's just like, did he just reveal his identity? It's like, wait a second, why did he do that? And then we cut to the northwest Hunter's Village. So it's just one of the other areas. Seeing some other giants here. Some of them are, a lot of them are wearing like animal pelts as like part of their clothes and like pulling out bows and arrows to probably go and fight against what's showing up and trying to attack them. We don't see anything specifically attacking this village, but there might be. And it's just like, are the kids okay? And Summers is continuing. He's like, now in Elbath. Well, you probably figured it out by now, but as of this moment, we are abducting 10 brats, and we cut back to where Summers is. And he is currently basically riding on like a thorn snake, like he brought to life to a degree one of like the giant thorny vines that he had like used to try to fight against Saul. The fact that he had to like do this whole like kind of Mass Effect area of making all of these, spiny, thorny vines pop up kind of shows that Saul at least kind of put up a bit of a fight. I hope they kind of expand that a little bit in the anime when they get to that. That'd be one of the filler fights that would be kind of good to watch. Just kind of see based on like any other moves that we see Summers use throughout the course of this arc. That would be kind of fun to see what they do there with that. Not too much, but a little bit. Just to add to show like just badass Saul using hockey and stuff like that. And we still see Saul in the background, and we see some of the monsters in the background. There's like the ghost with the top hat, and then like what looks like a wolf with like a weird antler. I can't tell. And Summers is actually like riding on top of like the thorn vine snake. And it's just like, and on top of that, some guy with an orange beard tried to play hero and free the kids, but he's already down, lying in a pool of blood. And we cut to the school where we see Angie, who is of course kind of like pinned down. She's like kind of in sleep mode. She's able to talk and still hear and listen and see to what's going on, but she can't move. So Kieringham did that to her in the last chapter, and she's like, Saul Sensei. And we see Kieringham just like standing there holding the Denden Mushi up to the Dengo. And then we cut to the Western Village where we see Jarl along with a bunch of the other giants listening in on the message. And the message continues. In other words, even if someone tries to rescue them, those brats are all underestimated. You all underestimated so much. I don't get that. In other words, even if someone tries to rescue them, those brats that you all underestimated so much, they're already heading straight toward the goal. Now, he does not specify necessarily what the goal is. In the case for the God's Knights, we know that it's to abduct the children. And they're like, that's not good. And we cut back to the school, and, the message continues. And it's like, this is where the real game begins. Too bad I can't stream video right now. I think this is Kieringham talking to Angie. And he's like, hey, do you know the names of all the children who are walking? And she's like, of course I do. Like, she's their teacher. She knows all of their names. And it's just like, then I want you to inform their parents. The kids will be waking up from the dream any moment now. So either that means Kieringham's effect of putting someone asleep, unless he cancels it, only lasts for a certain amount of time, or he's just removing it from the kids now. We saw him just do like a very small amount to Summers earlier, several chapters ago when he pulled out the salt, but other than that, he just woke him right back up again. So I don't really know what this means. Cutting to the kids, oh, these poor little ones. We see them still walking across one of the branches, being forced to follow the arrow. And Colin has joined the group, so there are 10 of them now, and the kids are waking up. And they're like, hey, why are our bodies moving on their own? Where are we going? I don't know, but we're getting further away. She's like, no, we're not. We're going back home through the Jupachi route. So the Jupachi appears to be like the name of the route, and it could just be part of like the tree route number 8 that was said previously that they were previously on. So it's possibly part of the route that the kids are on. We're going to get like a map a little bit later in this chapter, so we'll see how that goes. And it's just like, yeah, but don't you get it? We can't control our bodies. So they're all still being forced to move and follow the little arrow that Gunko has set up there. And we see the kids, and they all, they're kind of all talking. We're going to get names for, I think, all of them at the end of the chapter. But we see Colin has now been put in front of the line. And then we have Ilva behind him. And then we have a couple of other kids. And I'll get to their names in a little bit. And they're like, what? We're not gonna make it back home? I want my mom. I want my dad. I don't blame the kids in this situation at all for wanting their parents, although some of them are apparently terrified of their mothers. So I don't blame the kids at all for like being scared in this. And Colin's like, of course we won't find them. We're being kidnapped. It's like, yeah, Colin, you're not helpful. And they're just like, what? Is like what all the other 9 do. And then he's like, don't worry, I'm here. Unlike you wimps, I'm a warrior. Cue popping over the hedges or the trees in front of them, just the ghost with the top hat and like the weird dog pop up, and they're like, monsters, a ghost. Colin, save us. Colin, just freaking the F out, which, fair, Colin, fair. So now we're going to cut to the great Eric, and we're going to get a little bit of family building going on here right now. So we cut to the great Eric, and then it's just like being attacked by another one's like one of the pumpkin things, or some other ones that have shown up that are attacking it. And the great Eric, including like one of the someone's mom, and in this case wife, has shown up as one of the monsters. And it's just like, looks like they took down Saul. Turn the ship around. Let's go rescue the kids. But bosses, there's a hole in the hull, and the oars are broken too. So that means the ship has sustained enough damage that that's probably not going to happen. And it's just like, damn it, who the hell did this? No idea. It seems like some kind of monster woman, and one of the giant warrior pirates is looking over the side. That one over there kind of looks like my wife. It's like, and someone's like, you're gonna get your ass kicked if she hears you say that. It's just like, true. But in this case, it probably is based off of his wife, so it's not his fault that it looks like his wife. It's technically their child's fault. And it's just like, and that one looks like mine. Wait a second. These monsters are made from the stuff the kids are afraid of, right? Your wife is Bent's mother, right? Yeah, that's right. It's like, why wouldn't it be? And it's just like, so if that is what Bent imagined when he thought of what he's most scared of, it turned into his mom, which, again, these creatures have kind of, they remind me of like the Boggarts in Harry Potter, that they turn into your worst fear based on like who's in front of them. And of course, in the books and in the movie, they have the scene where, of course, Neville's the first one that has to deal with it, or Neville is the one that has to deal with his Boggart, and it's Snape that comes out. And Snape comes out, and then Neville has to like put him into his grandmother's clothes as a way of making it funny, so he's not as afraid of the Boggart at that point in time, with the ridiculous charm and everything. So this is the case where it's just like, I don't know if this is supposed to be a reference to something where like they just think their moms are scary, because some kids just think their moms are scary even if their moms are not mean at all or anything like that. Like the moms are just kind of demanding, but they're not like evil or abusive or anything like that. I think this is just supposed to be, these mothers run their homes with an iron fist and no one's gonna argue with them, is kind of what it might be. And it's just like, and like we see the great Eric, and like we see several of the oars are broken. We do see the hole in the hull. We see, and several of the giant warrior pirates are falling off of the ship. There's 2 of the women. One of them is like hanging on to the bottom, ripping at the oars. The other one is like on the deck of the ship, like either has like one hand on the figurehead, on the horn of the figurehead, and looks like she's about to like rip it off, and her weapon is the giant ladle, like a giant spoon, as she's getting ready to like whack stuff. And they both kind of look like they have like fiery type hair, kind of like just like fiery type hair. So there's that, and it's just like, then we are gonna be scared of her. It's like, yeah, they're all terrified of their wives, yeah. And we cut to, Dory, Bragi, Oimo, Kashi, and then one of the other giants are just like, ah, as they're all being terrified of the giant women. It's just like, how the hell are we supposed to keep our cool and fight that? By the way, it looks like Oimo got a very big hit given to him. So that's not good. So still on the ship, and it's just like, sorry for always going out drinking, babe. Honey, forgive me for forgetting to take out the trash. So they're all just trying to like appease their wives. And then like we see like the ghost in the top hat off to the corner, and its eyes are just big. So I don't know if this is like it's like amazed at what's happening, or that's just the way it's supposed to be, but it's funny. And it's just like, I'm really sorry for eating the customers' honey cake, sweetheart. Boss, they managed to rip the cloud island right off, the island cloud right out. We're gonna crash. So it's just like, and Great Eric has crashed into the ground. And Summers has decided to give a play-by-play commentary of what is going on here. And he's just like laughing, and he's just like, the proud ship of the giant warrior pirates just fell from the sky. Looks like there was some strong MMA involved in this mess. The chances of those brats being rescued are dropping by the second. So this is again the reference to the MMA, or Muma, as they're called. Is kind of how it's pronounced in Japanese, are the reference to the monsters, the kaiju, and stuff like that. They're kind of using the kanji for like the dream and monster type of a thing, a dream demon, nightmare beast type of thing. Is kind of how it translates to, roughly. So, Summers continues, and he's like, to cut to the chase, I'm speaking directly to you, legendary warrior Jarl of the mountain, of the Beard Mountain. So it's just Lord Mountain Beard, what his title is. And it's just like, and we cut to Jarl, sword still firmly in head. So it's like, no way, Dory, Bragi, and the others were... They're like very worried about them, which is fair. Their ship just crashed, and they don't know how high up they were, and they sustained a lot of damage. And Summers continues, with the king absent, you're his representative now. And we cut to where the ship has crashed, and we know that Scopper was also on the ship, because he was helping the giant warrior pirates. And Ripley has now shown up at the crash site, and she still has Frankie, her Frankie Tommy gun in hand, along with Lilith and Bonnie are flying because they have the Dom shoes, so they're able to fly because they're still in like their Elbath gear. All the Straw Hats have been changed into the Viking gear, the Elbath gear, but Lilith and Bonnie are still in their Egghead gear, excuse me, so they still have the Dom shoes, so they're still able to fly. And Ripley's like, you've got to be kidding me. Fall for the giant warrior pirates went down. Are the bosses okay? We need to hurry. And so they're rushing over there. And of course, she doesn't, I don't think she knows Scopper's on the ship, so she doesn't actually know that Scopper's involved in this already. And Summers continues, our objective is simple, to turn you giants into our battle slaves. So I want to see just how effective those brats will be as hostages. Really want to strangle Summer right now. And we cut down to this next part has, kind of the diagram, the, map of like where everybody is at the moment. So for the map, we see, well, almost everybody. We don't see Luffy's group on the map, but we see most of the other groups. So on one end of the map, we have where the school and the library are. And of course, the school currently has, Angie is there along with Principal Kiba, and Kiringham is there. And of course, you know that the other teachers are currently knocked out. We look over to the forest area off to the side of the branch, where we are a little bit north of the branch, or above the branch in this picture, since I don't know which way it's supposed to be north. But above the branch is where the Great Eric just crashed, and Ripley and Frankie are there, along with the giant warrior pirates and Yasan, Scopper. And then we cut to the village, or we see the village on the other end of the branch, and that is the West Village, and that is, of course, where Jarl is. And then we see the castle, Quest Castle, up further on the branch, and then, of course, that is where the Rainbow Bridge is that they can make with the painter, and there is a ship there. On the branch itself, the middle part of the branch, we see where Summers and Gunko are. And of course, they're right in the same area. And that is, of course, where Saul is on the ground currently. And where all of the Straw Hats were the group there, where Robin and Chopper are still in Saul's beard at the moment because they were waiting for Summers to get far enough away that they could try to get out. And then, of course, Nami, Usopp, Brook, and Jinbei are all still tied up. And then we see the line with for the arrow that shows where the kids are. And that is, of course, where the 10 children are, where it's Colin and Ilva and then the other 8, who we'll get names for in a moment. So, from there, or we're just about to get names for it, then we cut to Angie, who is talking to Keringham, and is, I guess, talking now to the dictation snail, the broadcast snail. And she's like, now the names of the children being taken. The first one is Ilva, who is, of course, referenced here. Jarl cut to, Jarl, and he's like, Ilva was kidnapped. She's my great-great-granddaughter. So he's panicking about that, and they're like, Jarl Sama. Reference. I mentioned a couple of weeks ago that one of my cousins had a baby. Baby is doing very well, so throw that in here with the great, my grandfather is now, he's been a great grandpa since my eldest niece was born, but 22 years ago, almost 22 years ago, so that's still a long time. Next up, we have next is Scardy, who is one of the other boys that has the goggles on the head and the horns. Those might be his actual horns, because it doesn't look like he's wearing a helmet. And he says, can we do something to stop this, is what he says. And then Olav, who is one of the kids that just has the helmet on. And it's just this has to be a dream, it's just a dream. And we see, we cut to Oimo on the Great Eric, and he is being very frantic because he's like, boss, he's my grandson, in regards to telling that to Bragi. And Bragi's like, that hurts, because Oimo grabbed his arm. He's like, boss, that's my grandson. Ow, that hurts. So you got a connection there. I did make a video a while ago when we kind of started getting introduced to some of the giants. I wondered if there was going to be some other family relationships. I had made the thought that maybe some of the new giant warrior parents might be connected to some of the older ones, like maybe Gerd connected to someone. May or may not still be the case, but at least at the moment, we know that Oimo's grandson, Olav, is there, and we know that Oimo and Kashi, that they were part of the group that, they left Dorian Bragi on Little Garden a little over 100 years ago, went back to headed their way back to Elbath, where they were captured. On the way back, they were captured by the world government. They had the big fake trial with Mother Carmel and everything, with her, being pretending that she could be a savior to the giants and everything. And then he went back to Elbath at that point in time. And either he was already married before they went out as the Giant Warrior Pirates, or he got married since then and had a child. That child grew up and then had Olav, so connection there. And then we have Karen, and she's just the girl that looks like she has the headphones on. And she's like, of course, just my luck. And just my luck again. It's like, have you been kidnapped before? That would be a very bad thing. We cut to the next one, and that is Mag, who's the bigger kid that we see. And he's just like, I'm strong, but I still can't stop myself, because they're trying to fight against following the arrow, but it doesn't work. And then we have Ranya, and it's like, it's okay, everyone, we're gonna be fine. And she's got 2 buck teeth and a ponytail that kind of, I can't tell if it goes like this or if it goes the back up. I can't tell. And we cut to the giants in one of the villages where they're being attacked by a giant octopus. And it's just like, oh, even my son, they're on Route 8. Is that right? Let's go rescue them. So it's the kids running off to try, it's the parents are going to run off to try to go save their kids, which is exactly what, Summers wants, because he wants that sick satisfaction of watching the parents try to, like, because of the thorns that he has wrapped around the children, of having the parents run and try to grab the children and then be stabbed the way that Saul was, except even worse, and see how much more of that parental instinct kicks in of, like, trying to protect your child. We get Bent, who is the son of one of the other ones that we saw earlier, of one of the pirates. And it's just like, my mom's going to yell at me. So he's the one who's terrified of his mom. And then we have Joanna, who is the little girl that, one of the other little girls that has, like, she's got the horns coming out of her side. So she might just have ancient giant blood. And she's like, you guys have parents, huh? Good for you. I don't know if that's supposed to mean that she's an orphan or what. I don't know what that means, but, like, that seems like a very flippant answer. And then it's Bjorn, just last kid that we're seeing here, and he's like, I wonder if I can at least save myself. And he kind of looks a little bit more, I don't know, shifty, I guess would be the way that he's kind of drawn. And he's going to get called out in a second. But Summers continues, and it's like, that makes 9. But just a moment ago, while trying to save his friends, and then we see, Colin at the beginning of the line as, see all the other kids here. Bear in mind, the kids do not know about the thorns. Because I don't think Colin saw anything that indicated about the thorns that was wrapped around all the other kids, like the clear thorns that was wrapped around them. So they don't know about the thorns. So if they try to touch each other, they would get stabbed by the thorns. So we'll have to wait and see what happens with that. If they figure that out, and then they could try to, like, warn their parents to not touch them. I would think the answer, like, Saul had kind of come up with part of an answer of, like, use, like, rope or something to, like, grab the kids and, like, pull them away, because, like, the rope shouldn't be affected by the thorns because it's not alive. The rope does not love the children, so the rope shouldn't be affected by it, so they should be able to, like, grab the rope and, wrap it around the kids, lasso the kids, and then, like, reel them in and, like, pin them somewhere so they can't keep walking. Or, like, I was going to say chains. Chains might be a bit much, but, like, rope the kids in and then, like, kind of pull them away so they're not walking further and further away. Joanna kind of scolds Bjorn. He's like, and she's like, what did you say, Bjorn? He's like, sorry, for, like, trying to only want to save himself. So Summers is like, that makes 10, but only a moment ago while trying to save his friend. Colin, a young warrior, stepped forward, and now there are 10 children. And we cut to the wreck of the Great Eric, where Ripley and, of course, Scarborough are, and they've been reunited. So this is our first shot of both of them together. And she's just carrying Scarborough. She's just holding Scarborough, which is hilarious. She has put Frankie down and picked up her husband. It's just funny. And they're like, oh, Colin? Oh, no, that's not good. And Scarborough is just like, see that, Ripley? I'm so proud of him. He's like, now is not the time for that. She's like, not the time right now for that, honey. Not the time. And Summers continues, and it's just like, all right, time for me to give an order. Listen closely, Elbath. So this is where we're going to get into more effed up part of this chapter. So I went back and double checked the way that the like Summers' last kind of speech at the end of it that he was, like, saying, that was kind of out loud, and, like, Saul kind of heard part of it, but it was like Summer was saying at the end of the last chapter about, like, the libraries in the school. So the quote that he had, because I wanted to check the official English translation version for this before this chapter, and the answer, and what he says is, schools, libraries, what kind of peace-loving nonsense is this? You people are warriors. You're going to use the vicious, violent power that once terrified the world to serve in service of us as mercenaries. Isn't that right, King Harald? And then stupid Harald had to go and screw it all up. So again, that was the way that he phrased it at the end of the last chapter. And it's just like, and stupid King Harald had to go and screw it all up. Again, I don't know exactly how this is supposed to be shifting. We know that Harald died about 12 years ago and everything happened with Loki. That was already explained. We know that I still feel that, like, some form of a school had already kind of existed, just given how much overgrowth has already been shown on the school with, that we see here. I think some form of a school already existed near the library, but I think it was more meant as like a warrior school, because like the spring is called the Warrior's Spring. So, and then I think with like Saul showing up, and then they brought all of the books, and all the books went into the library, and the library has definitely been there for a while, because like we hear, Biblo has been there for a long time. So I just think that it was, Brenda just had a very big sigh in the background. So I just think that it just makes sense that like the library already existed, we know this, but that the school already kind of existed. I just think it was more used as like a training ground, because it's called Warrior Spring, and like they have like the school there. And then when Saul showed up, and if Harold had already kind of had some of these issues going on with the world government, and maybe Harold was again trying to undermine the world government, or he's just like, oh yes, we will, find a way to pledge allegiance or whatever to you down the line, or whatever the case was, where he was in, he was like playing both sides. He was intending to double cross the world government, keep Elbaf safe and try to keep the world government at a distance for a little bit longer, and then try to shift the culture away from being this warrior-based culture with the violence and viciousness, like Summer said, shift it into more of learning and history and culture and that type of a thing, and shift more into that. With like, and like Saul showing up gave him this perfect excuse to do this, with like all of these books from Ohara, and with Saul there and everything, and like shifting into that. And then that's like the last couple of generations, including, this current generation with like Colin and his group, like they have been raised in this. So I think it was maybe Harold may have been trying to do a little bit of a double cross on the world government, and he's like, oh yes, but then he's like, I'm gonna try to shift us more into a peaceful state, so maybe the world government won't see us as much of a threat. Is like, that's just kind of what I think. It could just very well been that Harold was a horrible guy and he just hid it, and that's why Loki killed him, or there was a misunderstanding or something, or like Loki had to kill Harold, or something along those lines. I still don't know exactly where I fall on that one. So now we go back to the current speech that Summers is giving over the Dengo Mushi all over the island, and he's like, this school of yours, useless in war, and that pathetic library stuffed with meaningless history, I want you to burn them down immediately and swear loyalty to us. And all the giants are like, what? Why would we do that? And it's just like, otherwise, we'll start wiping those kids out, one by one. Now, I don't know if the kids are able to, like, hear what's going on, but they are starting to, like, shout for help, and, like, a lot of them are starting to cry, which is fair. I don't blame them. And so we get that, and we cut back to the Great Eric, where it's been knocked down, and, Ripley is still holding, Ripley's still holding Scopper, and Frankie's kind of, like, trying to rally the other giants. Rally the giants, and we see Dory and Broggy in the background, and they're just like, what the hell are those bastards saying? I know where that place is. Let's go save them. I'm gonna crush those damn bastards. And it's like, yeah, they're trying to hurt your children. Of course you have every right to be angry at them. And Summers continues, and we get a close-up of him. And he's like, this choice is yours, Elder Jarl. Mine? And Angie says, wait, please. That's way too cruel. And Keringham just kind of looks over at her. And I think this is supposed to be Angie's words being magnified again over the Den Mushi. Or over the Dengo Mushi. And she's like, the school is a symbol of peace in today's Elbaf. The library holds the ancient history of Elbaf and the world's knowledge preserved thanks to the sacrifice of Ohara's scholars. This treasure doesn't belong to Elbaf alone. Because that does not seem... this is Angie talking, because that's most definitely not something that Keringham would care about, or that Summers would care about at all. So she's yelling that, and it's being transmitted over the Dengo Mushi all over the island. And Summers is just like, ugh, what a bummer. And we see, and we get the last two bits here, the last two, like the two people very much going into action right now of like must protect children modes are kicking in here. And first we see Robin and Chopper is just like trying to stop Robin. He's like, Robin, don't go, don't do this. And then she's just like kind of like getting angry because like she's much closer to where the kids are at the moment, and she's getting ready to do something. And then we see that Ripley is just shouting, yeah, son, please. And Scopper has already just jetted off as fast as he can in the direction of where the kids are. And we get these great close-ups of Robin and Scopper, and it's just like, I won't allow this, is like what they're both saying, because it's like Robin would put her life on the line to protect kids. We've seen her do it already. She's gonna do it again now. Scopper, like, yeah, Colin is his son, but he was already jumping into this fight already before he knew that his son was one of the ones in danger. Just because he's like, I'm not gonna let these kids get hurt, and like these giant monsters are attacking my, the place where my wife and son live. It's like, as I've stated already, it's like Scopper wasn't going to get involved if it was just like Loki doing all this damage and everything like that, because like that was Luffy let Loki go, or he was going to let Loki go and everything. But then all the crap happened with the God's Knight showing up and all of these monsters showing up and the fire and everything else like that. And that's why Scopper jumped in. He's like, this is not Loki related. I can tell this is not Loki bullshit related. So I'm going to jump in here. Also, this looks like a fun fight. Let's fight these random monsters. So that's kind of where Scopper came in. Also, it's just like, this is where my family lives. I want this place to be safe for them. I want this to be safe for my wife and my son and everything else like that. So that's just kind of where that comes in. And of course, Robin's protectiveness for children, we have seen several times. We saw it with Toko during Wano, a little bit with Tama, whenever she actually interacted with Tama. We have seen her be like protective of Bonnie when like Bonnie's in her kid form. And of course, now she's like going into like protective mode for the kids. Nami, if she was not pinned down right now and tied up by Gunko right now, she would be part of this group too, wanting to go and like protect them. Now, I do have a theory or a question about how Gunko's abilities would work on Robin, because Robin, of course, has it where she can do like the flare, and then like all of her, the hands pop up, and like if they can like pin Gunko down. I don't know how Gunko's arrows would be able to affect those right away. And would there be something where Robin would then be able to like rip apart the arrows that are like tying the rest of the crew together, that are tying, the other four together that are right there? Or like she pins down Gunko and then Chopper jumps out and like rips the other arrows apart that are pinning the other Straw Hats that are tying them up. There's no Luffy in this chapter. There's no Zoro or Sanji in this chapter. See everybody else, but not them. So, because like Robin's attacks, like if she like did her like her the Manos and everything like that, the Fleur Manos, where she makes them big, Gigantomana and everything else like that, the big hands and arms, or the big feet and legs, or like her Demonio, Fleur Demonio form and everything else like that. If she went into those, yeah, I would say, or did try any of those, I would say that Gunko would definitely be able to like redirect those attacks. But if she just like pops her hands up all around Gunko and like pins Gunko to the ground, or kind of, like even momentarily like breaks her back long enough to like break Gunko's concentration, maybe distract her enough. She breaks Gunko's back, Gunko is just going to heal anyway, so it's not like that's a big problem. So that might be something. Although, to be fair, it would be freaking awesome to see Robin just turn into the, her monster form of, Fleur Demonio, and just reach out, grab Gunko, rip Gunko in half, and chuck her to the side. That would be awesome. Unlikely, but awesome if that was something she actually did. And then I would be like, okay, which one is going to reform of Gunko? Just for like that moment, and like use that moment to like free the other Straw Hats, because now they would have like a slightly better idea of like how she fights. So it's just like, okay, how can we try this? I'm very certain that like Gunko's arrows could definitely like cut into Robin the same way that like Black Maria was able to harm Robin. And like we know that Robin, like if any of her manifested hands or arms or legs or whatever, if they get hit, she does sustain some type of damage, even when it's one of her clones jumps up. She could make a clone jump up and it could try to like deal, attack Gunko and distract Gunko a little bit or something. I don't remember if we've seen Robin make more than one clone at a time. I don't think we have. I know she's made like the giant version of her, but I don't think we've seen her make more than one clone. Because we saw her be able to make the clones back at Fishman Island. That was kind of introduced there. And then I don't think we saw her use any of her clones during Dressrosa or Punk Hazard. We saw her use the clone for espionage purposes in Wano when she was spying on Orochi, but other than that, I don't think we've seen her use her clones again for a little while. And I don't know if she can control more than one clone at any given time. That might be more of a, when she gets stronger, she might be able to, more practice type of a thing. Make more than one clone, can control what it does. But these two here, just like, we'll see what happens with these two in the next chapter for like who's going to do what. We are supposed to have a chapter next week, so we'll see what happens there. And I believe that is it for this chapter. So I thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you have a nice rest of your day. Bye.